Well, welcome again, everyone, to Sports Chat. Today is June 8th, and we have a little something special with you. As you can see, we don't have our desk. We're a little casual today because we're going to have some hockey stuff for you, and it's going to be real special since the Bruins are in the Stanley Cup.
Why don't we call this the Sports Chat Bruins Special?
I think we should. I wish we had like a stamp. We should have stamped it.
It's too late now.
Got to think ahead next time. Anyways, why don't we start off? We'll give you a quick overview of the series and our other regional sports. But then we're going to jump in. We have a special guest to talk some hockey with us, and then we'll just go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right, well, I'll start off. First of all, Bruins, Stanley Cup. They're down 2-1, but, I mean, they won the last game. That's good.
That's
right?
great.
That's a good way to go.
It
They're
is.
on the right track. But the first 2 games, it was tough. They lost in grand fashion in the first 2 games. Played well in the first 2 games, but late just kind of let things slip away. In Game 1, Rafi Torres sent the Bruins home after a great game, and he beat Tim Thomas with just about 18 seconds left in regulation. So, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow. They played a good game throughout and couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah.
And then Game 2, the new villain in Boston, Burrows. You'll hear more about him in a moment.
Yeah.
But he came away with, he already had a goal and an assist in the game. Came away with the game winner in overtime and ended up beating Tim Thomas and playing his over-aggressiveness a little bit. So they lost the first 2 games in Vancouver, but they came home, and that's where Mama's cooking was just perfect.
Oh, it was
She cooked up a nice souffle. Oh, tasted wonderful. Because the Bruins came away with an 8-1 win.
Amazing.
But it came with a price. Unfortunately, now the Bruins are going to have to play the rest of the Stanley Cup final without star winger Nathan Horton. He went down about 5 minutes in, 15 minutes left in the first period, and it was a rough hit, a late hit, and severe concussion. He's out.
He's done.
It was tough to watch. It was tough to see.
Yep.
But
it's tough to think about now.
The team rallied around him, came away with an 8-1 win, and hopefully they'll stand by their teammate. They hung that ugly Bruins coat that they have, that they give to the player of the game, hung it in his locker in his honor. It's tough to see him go. He's, aside from Tim Thomas, could possibly be the team's MVP right now. So it's a very tough person to lose, not a guy you want to lose right now.
No, it's not a guy you want to lose at all. But if you want to look at it from the positive side, and I realize there's no positive side at all to the fact that it was such a bad hit and the fact that he's hurt and he's now has to deal with this for God knows how long, because concussions can last a long time. But the Bruins responded in a positive way. I don't know what happened in the locker room during the first intermission, but I assume that somebody said something about winning one for Horton, and they did. They came out, no goals in the first period. First period looked a lot like the first 2 games. They were struggling offensively. They looked like they were in the game, but they just weren't getting the chances. They weren't getting the shots you wanted to see them get. Then all of a sudden they came out in that second period, scored 4 goals, came out in the third period, scored 4 more. 2 power play goals in the game. I mean, something lit a fire under them. And I have a feeling, although it's an awful thing for the team to have to go through, I have a feeling that hit had something to do with that fire being lit.
It might have, but either way, 2-1 is the series. They play again tonight. Hopefully they can pull one out here in Boston, go back to Vancouver, and keep things going from there. Play a best-of-3 series.
Yeah, and I mean, another positive note, because I like to keep things positive, is
this guy.
We're literally only about 30 seconds from having a 3-0 lead in the series right now. If you think about it. I mean, if that goal doesn't go in with almost no time left on the clock in the first game, if Tim Thomas doesn't pounce 9 feet out of the net in the first couple seconds of overtime in the second game, who knows what could have happened. So the Bruins didn't play great in those first 2 games. They played well. They didn't play amazing. But they held their own, which was a question some people had about whether or not the Bruins could hang with Vancouver, and it looks like they definitely can. And, I mean, being down 2-0 wasn't a positive thing, but it was positive that they kept it so close. And then when they came out...
I can stand with you there.
Yeah, then when they came out and played their style hockey in Game 3, it wasn't so close anymore.
Touché. Good point. Very good point.
Yep.
Now, that's the Bruins in the Stanley Cup. Now, we want to talk a little bit about our good friend Burrows here, who did a number on the Bruins faithful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Burrows means to this series?
We're going to talk a little finger baiting. as it's been
deemed
yes
by the public.
in the first game. Burrows, I believe it was during the first period.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that. In the first game, during a little scrum after the whistle had been blown, Burrows decided he would try to take a bite out of Bergeron's finger. And if you ask me, or
a nice little chomp.
if you ask me or anyone else who watched the game or the numerous replays that were all over different sports shows,
Anyone who watched the video.
anyone who was anywhere near the video knew that he definitely did bite Bergeron's finger. Bergeron's finger was in his mouth, and he closed his teeth. Biting?
I think so.
Biting.
I don't have a dictionary to look it up exactly,
No,
but I believe
biting
that's
has
the
something to
essence.
do with something.
That's the essence
Yes.
of biting.
So, according to the league, there was no video evidence that he bit Bergeron.
Really?
So there was no disciplinary action. Now, I'm not saying he should have been suspended. I understand it's the Stanley Cup Finals and you don't want to take players away from teams, but something had to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be kidding
fine.
me.
A fine would have been nice.
Yeah, a hefty fine would have been nice, just to set a little bit of a precedent. Because at this point, what the league has told the players is go ahead and take bites out of your opponent's hands. We won't punish you. It's just good, fair play.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, nobody's buying that there was no video evidence of this biting thing.
True.
Everyone saw
And
it.
since then, now it's become a mockery.
It has.
Hence finger baiting.
In Game 2 and in Game 3, players have been seen sticking their fingers towards each other's mouths, sticking their fingers towards each other's mouths, just like this, and taunting the other team, tempting them, I'm going to do it,
Sorry.
tempting them to bite each other's fingers, thus being deemed, I really am going to bite you,
All right.
thus being deemed finger baiting. And in Game 2, Canucks forward,
I didn't mean to do it that time. That one just slipped. Sorry.
one more
Sorry,
time,
continue on.
and your
Continue
finger
on.
is going to be in my mouth.
All right. Fine.
All right. In Game 2, Maxime Lapierre started out this finger baiting trouble by trying to insert his fingers in Bergeron's mouth, and a little bit of a taunt, held his fingers right up there, tried to see if he could bait Bergeron to bite his fingers. And then in Game 3, Recchi and Lucic got in on the fun. Recchi decided that he was going to try to stick his fingers in Burrows' mouth, and then Luch just had enough and punched Burrows right in the side of the head before he tried to stick his fingers in Burrows' mouth. So clearly, Burrows, not a very well-liked man in Boston or in the Bruins locker room, with good reason.
With very good reason.
Somebody bit my fingers, I wouldn't be happy. If somebody bit your fingers, you're my teammate here. If somebody bit your fingers, I wouldn't be happy.
Right.
And I would bite them back.
If our guest, who you'll see later, if he bit my finger, or if he bit your finger, I'd punch him.
Right, and if he bit your
I'd do
finger,
that.
I'd stick my fingers right down his throat.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you do for
That's
teammates.
the way you settled it.
Exactly. So,
And we wouldn't find anyone.
no, because there'd be no video evidence.
no.
You know there are 3 cameras here.
Well,
So, one last thing about the finger baiting. I'm not saying I like it, but it is certainly entertaining. And Claude Julien definitely does not like it.
he is not a fan.
Yeah, his reaction after the game was that he did not appreciate the way his team played. He didn't like the chippy play. He didn't like the finger baiting.
No.
But I'm not saying it's good for the game, but it's good for me when I'm watching it. It's certainly entertaining.
Fair enough.
I don't think I want it to continue because God knows now that, after the dirty hit on Horton, the refs are going to be a little bit more aggressive with their penalty calls, but still an entertaining part of the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gives it some character.
And now we're just going to jump into the other sports. I mean, they're not...
Let's do it quick because this is the Bruins
They're
special.
not the big story, but we do have a big man who will no longer be playing in the NBA. That's Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Superman, the big Aristotle, the big Shamrock,
The big
big
cactus.
cactus. What else was there? He had more nicknames than you could ever imagine, and
Yes.
now he wants to be referred to as the big AARP.
Yep, in typical Shaq style,
Yep.
he went out the same way he came in.
He had a classic press conference. He invited all the media, had a dinner with everyone.
Yep.
And he was funny. One reference that I liked in his press conference was he said he was going to miss a lot about the game. He was going to miss the camaraderie, the chase for the championship, and most of all, he was going to miss the free throws.
Yep, so it looks like that won't be changing.
But-
missing free throws when he played, missing free throws
So
when he
Shaq
was
is
done.
gone. Thank you, Shaq, for 19 wonderful years. You were a great player, one of the greatest I know I've watched,
Yep.
and I'm happy to have said that I've seen him play with my hometown Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
So it's all good if you ask me. But there's another future Hall of Famer that decided he's going to pick up his option and he's going to stay here in Boston. That's Ray Allen. He decided really not a shock to anyone.
No.
But he loves Boston. He loves being here, and he's getting older, so there's no sense in trying to go somewhere else. So Ray Allen decided he's going nowhere. He's staying here, and he's going to stick with Boston, at least for next year. And the big three will remain together for one more season, one more year.
And maybe, you never know what's going to happen. You throw in a couple extra pieces.
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible.
Absolutely. And why don't you tell us a little bit about those Sox?
Real quick, want to touch on the Red Sox. After they beat the New York Yankees last night in what was basically their first meaningful game of the season,
yes,
they're now tied for the lead in the AL East, which is very good news for the Red Sox. I remember weeks ago when we were sitting here and they hadn't won a game yet, and we thought the season was over, but turns out
it's not.
It's not over. With a win tonight, the Red Sox could have first place all of themselves in the AL East.
Hot dang.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for them, usually Red Sox Yankees front page news, right? But not today.
See, you fooled me a little. I thought you were going to say, unfortunately, Daisuke is hurt.
No,
that's not unfortunate.
No, that's not unfortunate.
No, that's fortunately Daisuke.
Yeah, you're right.
Going to have Tommy.
Right.
So we want to touch on that real quick too. Daisuke is out for the remainder of this season. He's going to have Tommy John surgery. Could even be part of next season.
Yeah.
And to that I say, feel better, Daisuke, but not too quickly.
Yeah, could have done his last game. Could have pitched his last game as a Boston Red Sox.
And if it's true, that's fine with me.
It's a lot of money wasted.
Yeah, but
a lot of money wasted.
You can't blame them.
I can. No.
This is a debate for another day.
You're right.
This is the Bruins.
I
special.
digress.
You digest.
But like I was saying, you would think Red Sox Yankees is front page news. Not today. So we're going to jump into the chat room and introduce to you our special guest today. It is John Simmons, who is a former star goaltender at Avon High School, former star goaltender at Bridgewater State University.
Let me give you some stats. 3-time All-Star at Avon.
Okay.
2-time All-Star at Bridgewater. That's all I got.
All right. Well,
pretty sure
a lot of stars. Yeah. I think that's what I was referring to when I said you were a star goaltender. But anyways.
All of it.
I mean, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I guess that was good.
Yep.
Cool. Anyways, before I was cut off there, we're going to step into our chat room, talk a little Bruins.
My favorite
Talk
part
a lot
of
of
the show.
Bruins, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
A whole lot of them. So let's get right down to it. Our first question in the chat room was, the series is getting chippy. As we all know, there's finger baiting and the unfortunate play with Nathan Horton. So we wanted to know, do our fans think that it's getting out of hand with the chippy play? And Danny Swartz from Stoughton High School answered us and said, the chippy play is all right, but the hit on Horton was too much. And definitely, you can't argue with that. The hit on Horton was a bit too much. We've said that already, that it was a bad hit, tough hit to watch. It was a gruesome hit.
Yeah. It's not something you ever want to see.
You don't want to see it, but just a quick note that in Game 3, there were 145 penalty minutes given
talk
up.
about chippy play.
So chippy play is definitely getting into the picture there. Part of that's the finger baiting.
Yeah, the finger baiting plus the devastating hit on Horton. You had to expect a little bit of payback, a little bit of retribution.
And an 8-1 blowout game.
Right.
So we'd like to know, what do you think about the chippy play in this series, John? Do you think it's good? Do you think it plays in the Bruins' hands? What do you think?
I mean, let me tell you something about chippy play. You're playing for all the marbles. You're going for it. It's the Stanley Cup Finals. Historically, you're going to have chippy play because there's two teams that are trying to get the other one to not get what they're going to get.
Yeah.
They want the Stanley Cup, so you're going to have a lot of penalties. You're going to have a lot of intensity, and with intensity, unfortunately, comes penalties.
Absolutely.
So here's my question.
It's a battle, is what you said.
Here's my question for you. Do you think that the chippy play favors Boston or favors Vancouver?
It plays into Boston's hands when they're more aggressive, when they're getting physical, when they're on the boards, when they're forechecking hard. They play at their best, so the physicality can play into their hands.